could you tell me what you think marketing is? Yes, Caitlin, go ahead.
Just
Thank you for jumping on this so quickly.
like engaging customers and like trying to make like more profit or like making better choices for the company, kind of improving.
So yes, it's you could so summarizing what you say, it's like improving sales, profit, sales, improving, getting more customers. And this is very true too. You know, when you have a business, what you're trying to do is to get more customers, sell more products. And so marketing definitely helps you with this. The problem is when people equate marketing and sales, it's a little sometimes seen as reactive, which means that the more salespeople you have, the more you sales, the more you spend in sales, the more you sales. But marketing is actually something that is also done before sales in the sense that there's a preparation. So do salespeople um, create the products? Most of the time, 99% of the time, they don't. They sell the products given to them. Here's the inventory, here's the stock, go ahead, sell it. Here's the price, here's the promotion you can give, and so forth. So, oftentimes, salespeople are very reactive, which means that they push what's inside the inventory. And marketing, when it's in about pushing, is a little passive in the sense it's trying to just give discounts. It's trying to trap people. It's trying to get attention. It's trying to make noises in order to sell the product. There is a marketing which is much more proactive, which is the one that's looking at what do customers want, what are the problems that they have, what product should we create in order to solve these problems. And therefore, marketing could be so proactive in the sense that you don't need that many salespeople because the product sells itself. That's the best marketing. In fact, you know what is the best marketing? It's word of mouth. Word of mouth is when people are so happy with the product that they tell others, and therefore you need no salespeople, you need nothing. It product just sells itself. So sales is important, but it's a little bit um, passive, and you would want to have a much more active before getting into the sales, where the product just sells itself. I just wanted to add this because there's two sides. There's the preparation, and then there's the activation. What other things do you think when you think of marketing?
Branding. So, well, I mean, you could use Coke as an example. I'm talking about Coca-Cola, just
Yes,
wanted to specify that. So yeah, I mean, like, so take Coke, right? Like,
yes,
uh, y- you see the brand, you see the red can, and you go, okay, that's Coke. You don't need to go, well, let me see what it tastes like first. Uh, it just, all you have to see is that. Or during in uh Christmas time, right? The Santa Claus, right? Every time you see that, you're like, okay, yeah, that's Coke.
that's
So
right.
there is sales involved, but that's only one part. It's more about what is everything around it, around, I guess, the sales part, right? Because you could have great well, I guess you could have good sales and not have a great product as far as marketing goes.
That's right.
But um, yeah, I mean, it all kind of is interwoven together. So I
So
don't know if that answered the question
yeah,
or
yes,
not.
yes, because you started talking about branding. So I'm a person who specializes in the luxury marketing, for example. I've been working on in that field since 1993. And so when looking at luxury branding is very important in terms of the marketing activity that you need to focus on. Why? Well, because there's a lot of counterfeit. So what do
Hmm.
people buy? Do they buy a fake Hermes at $150 or do they buy a real Hermes at $40,000? Obviously, $40,000 is expensive for a bag. Most people won't wake up in the morning and buy a $40,000. The $150 looks almost the same as the $40,000. In fact, if you spend $500 for a fake one, you would have one that looks pretty much the same. Even the people that own a real Birkin or Kelly will have a hard time seeing the difference between the real one and a fake one. Therefore, what's the difference between buying just a bag from Marshall and buying Hermes from the store, the Hermes store? The difference is the brand. So the brand is what makes the whole difference. Same thing. So I used your example for Coca-Cola. If you
Right.
buy Coca-Cola, the branding is the fact that you're just buying this specific product. And more strangely enough, is if you give 15 different soda, Coke flavored soda to people, most of the time, and this is
But
not me
close it.
saying,
Thank
most
you.
of the people will not prefer the Coca-Cola and would prefer the knockoff brands. In fact, Virgin Cola is the one that will win the flavor most of the time. But if you ask people if they ever had a virgin cola, most people will tell you no. And they all had a Coca-Cola. And if you ask
Right.
people what do they have in the fridge, you rarely find anyone that's a virgin cola. When in fact, in the blind test, they test it that it's so much better, but like a lot better. They don't think, oh, it's a little better. It's a lot better. So the
Right.
reality is, why do they buy the brand that they find inferior? Because it's a brand. So the brand may be much more value than anything else, and the reason why people will buy the product. A Rolex probably will cost something like $800 or maybe less to make. Yet that watch will be sold for $20,000. If you
Right.
go from $800 and $20,000, that's a huge markup that almost no other brand in the world has. And why do people spend that much money? Because they're buying the brand. They're buying the brand more than they're buying the
Right. Right.
functionality of the watch. So branding in so many ways is one of the most powerful tools. We live in a world right now where there's different prices for things made in different countries. If you make something in America, it will cost you 8 to 20 times more than if you're making it in an overseas faraway
Right.
country. So therefore, you have to decide about the brand. If suddenly you're creating this product and you're not protected and it's been copied somewhere else and then they're making it even better than you, what is the difference between your brand of jeans and their brand of jeans? Is suddenly you want Wrangler, you want Levi's because that's what you want. So the
Right.
brand is what separates you and what keeps you competitive, and therefore branding is a very important activity. So thank you for
Right.
talking about branding. That's an
Or
activity of marketing.
or or like okay. I mean, I don't drive, although other people know after being in LA and spending almost over $400 on Uber, maybe I should start. Um, but like hopping in a Waymo. Like, okay, yes, it's the technology. As this is just an example. You could take any company, you could take
Yes,
Tesla, Apple, Microsoft, but it's not so much about, I guess in that case, it is the technology, but it's also the fact that then someone goes, oh, you got in a Waymo or something like that.
yes,
It's more about the what that's associated with. So,
yes.
um, yeah,
Yes, yes, branding is very important. I mean, if breakfast cereal is the same thing, everything. So branding is, well, in fact, that's how it got me started. When I did my MBA, we had to write a dissertation, and I wrote a dissertation about branding. That was in 1993, and so I thought this was the most important. That's how my entire professional consulting and professor career started. Is because of this concept of branding, which I found the most fascinating one when it comes to marketing. But you'll see that this what's the synthesis of all of this is much simpler. Yes, Justin, go ahead.
I would say kind of similar to what Casey was saying. Marketing is it's branding, it's developing a narrative around whatever product or service that you're trying to sell in the hopes of like persuading whatever market you're trying to target that whatever it is that you are selling is something that either they need or something that they're going to want to have.
Correct. So what's interesting between everything you're saying, everyone, is this concept of, I think that's the most important one, is problem solving. It's very important to be someone who loves to bring a new way to solve a problem. There is maybe a new problem or an existing problem. And so marketing is very good for those people that are risk taker and problem solvers and creators and people-oriented persons as well. Asher, go ahead. You have your hand up.
Yes, I was gonna say that marketing could be identifying a niche in a particular community or
Yes.
culture, which I guess would be problem solving, but I I think I'm looking at it from the other way around where the entrepreneur or the company observes particular behaviors and then come up with the product. I
Exactly.
mean,
So
they duplicate the culture expresses itself as in a brand, and then the marketing comes from I think reselling the idea back to the consumer.
that's right.
But the company didn't come up with it first. So that would be a niche. And also identifying a tipping point where you can see something that's happening and you get that brings upon the opportunity for
Oh,
you to
yes,
create
that's correct. Yeah,
product.
it's very good. So some example following what you just said. So a very big company, which is the biggest in the world and happens to be a French company. It's called L'Oréal.
Mm,
L'Oréal is the biggest company in the perfume and beauty care products in the world. L'Oréal started from a person that was a chemist. He was just a chemist. He was working as an employee, and then he got a number of ideas. And one of them, he was already pretty rich in the 20s. He realized that in the 20s, people had vacation. It didn't exist before. At least this was in France. They had vacation before there was no paid vacation. And when paid vacation came, the first thing people did is they spent a lot of time outside. And as they spent a lot of time outside, people got sunburned. And as they got sunburned, he got sunburned, his family got sunburned. As a chemist, he went back to the laboratory and he created the sunscreen. And so then he created sunscreen and he was already a billionaire. Then he became even bigger billionaire. And he just did all kinds of things like this because he looked at the time. As a French person, I discovered something when I came to America the first time. It was in 1997, I think. So when I came in 1997, the first thing that struck me is when I went to the airport and landed in Los Angeles, they asked me what was my race. I'm not being funny, is I had no idea was what my race because nobody ever asked me what was my race, so I couldn't specify what was my race. But it was very strange to see that every American knows their race, but they also the race of their cousins, their neighbor, everybody else. It's a very clear understanding. It's almost like a specialty of knowing your race here. For sure, I had no idea. And the reason I had no idea is because in France it's illegal to ask their people's race. There's one race is human and nobody asks you your race. There's no statistics about your race. So now I go back to L'Oreal. L'Oreal is a big company that do marketing in France, that started in France. And so when they were making makeup, they were making makeup for human beings. Then they came to America and then they did some marketing and realized, hey, in America, they ask your race all the time. We collect information about the race of people all the time because it's legal. It's not legal in France, but it's legal in America. And then they started creating makeup for Hispanics and makeup for African Americans and makeup for Asians and makeup for all of these. And I thought that was a really interesting marketing situation where suddenly marketing was used to divide people in the division that was done culturally and use this cultural difference in order to create different makeup and different beauty care for the different ethnicities. To me, I'm just a marketing geek. This was just great because it was marketing used to an extent that was remarkable. Then came Christmas, and then I was blown away because I was buying Christmas cards, and I went to the Hallmark store, and I also saw Santa Claus as a African people dressed in Santa Claus, and just being a simple French person, I never even thought of this because it was very different. So obviously, this difference of the niche and the different cultures that you're talking about is something extremely important in marketing. And it's something that is cultivated. Sometimes it's cultivated at a mass level, sometimes it's segmented, sometimes it's targeted, sometimes it's micro segmented, and sometimes it's micro niche. And so it's different because of the purpose of the product, before the type of customers, before the stage of the product launch. You just look at people in different ways in order to be better suited for a smaller group and more efficient for the smaller group. And sometimes it's also your budget. So you cannot go after a large group of people. So you focus on a specific group and grow from there as the spillover effect from a small group. You grow into a bigger and a bigger and a bigger, and you build your business. And eventually you sell it to a bigger brand, and then you retire at 40 years old.
I
So,
I have a
yes.
question. Can we, and this is kind of more of a broader discussion about how data analytics plays a role in marketing and how that has that has that changed over time, um, as far as how it's used, especially with access to with more, you know, especially like, signing up for anything
Yes.
and using that for marketing purposes.
Oh, yes, it's totally changed because before there were information from specialty companies that you had to buy after the software created the systems for you to, through the software, to get the information from your sales and making databases. Then there was the internet where you started building databases from the internet, and now there's digital marketing and social media where you use this information in order to make your databases. You still can buy the data, but you can scrap the data from the internet and collect information in order to make your own decisions. So obviously, now it's, every time people say, oh, the internet was created to free people. Well, no, it was created by marketers to get to people faster. Oh, social media was created for freedom. No, it was created by marketers in order to get to people's, brain. And so every time there's an advancement, it's usually, I mean, there's the two biggest thing that makes evolution in technology and communication. One is military, and two is pornography. They are the most powerful system in order to make communication development, because for some reason they are the one that gets the, because military is they're trying to collect data in the most confidential way, and they use all kinds of communication technology in order to improve it. So the internet, as you probably all know, was not created by some non-profit in Switzerland, but it was created by the military. And essentially pornography is what has been fueling all of this. And so a lot of these different things, it's just crazy, but true. And so marketing is just on top of this. It's not the creator of all that, but it's the financial, monetary user of the system in order to maximize profit for all of this technology that is available to us. Well, very good. I love the interactivity. Thank you very much. Anyone wants to add something else about what they think marketing is? So, my simple definition, which I believe is still through the time, there's many definitions, but it's the one that I like because it's the most simple and the most parsimonious in the sense that it's practical, simple. So all of these different color are different concepts. So the delivery means there's a production system, there is a creation system, there is a channel of distribution systems of customer, because at the end, like Asian, you were saying, there's a target, there's a niche, there's someone that needs to be buying the product. What you're generating is satisfaction, and at the end, there needs to be a profit because it's a business. A business, even if it's a non-profit business, they need to be making some kind of money in order to keep the business stable. Um, no matter what, there is inflation. Even if there is a small inflation, there's always inflation. So if you don't make profit, your business will be disappearing just because of the inflation. So you have to keep making more money in order to pay next year bill, which will be even more than this year bill. And then it needs to be long term. The idea of long term is you cannot be predatory. Bad business is predatory. A bad business, I don't know if you use Yelp or if you use eBay or if you use Amazon or whatever, you can see the rating of the businesses. There is comments and people satisfaction that is mentioned. And so obviously the people that are the one that try to rip people off, they can't have a sustainable business, because eventually if you have too many negatives, nobody's going to be buying from you. So you have to look at this long-term relationship. Before the internet, the relationship was just based on everyone complaining, and the more people complained, the less people went to that restaurant. But now, because of technology, you can exactly see the rating of people, and it's much more transparent. So therefore, the long-term idea is very important. So you don't try to make as much as possible from each individual, but you try to build a relationship with each individual. So that's what's important with marketing: is you're not transactional, you're a relationship. You making a long-term investment into people, and people can see that. Is everyone loyal? No. Are most people loyal? Yes. And that's where you're going to be making money, is from the long-term loyalty of most people. Even though sometimes they may be disappointed, they may be not as satisfied as before, but because they're looking at the long-term relationship, then it works better. Now, I give you one, two, three, four, 5 words to remember to what is marketing. So maybe that's too many words, five. But if there was one word that would be the most important here, the only one that I would like you to remember is satisfaction. If I say, what is marketing? Marketing is satisfaction. You need to become the queen and the king of satisfaction. Is you care for people to be satisfied. What happens when the more you satisfy people? What do you think happens?
They return to
They
buy more
return.
products.
Exactly. What is the advantage of returning customers?
That's where the real money gets made.
Exactly. Because getting new customers is expensive. Returning customers are becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. But what's the beauty of returning customers? What usually happen when you have lots of returning customers?
You create a relationship
Yeah.
and they become mavericks. They tell you what the next step should be, what they want in the future.
Yeah, that's right. Wow.
Like the razor. Like, I mean, think about that. That's something that's something that I mean, everyone needs it, right? So it's like there's your the company, so use Gillette, right? They know, okay, they're going to keep coming back and back and back, and you're
That's
going to
right.
be repeat customer. So
That's right. So talking about the racer, it's interesting because last semester, so we finished it in December, we did a project for a company called Vitry. Vitry is a company that actually created disposable razors. They are not as famous as Gillette. In fact, they are small, very, very small compared to Gillette. Yet, that's a company is almost 300 years old. Before making razor, they were making swords and swords that people were using in the military to kill each other before Napoleon, in fact, they started. And so they went from razors to surgical equipment, and then they came up with a razor system that you could be disposable. And so they are still a company that makes a good amount of money. They sell in more than 25 countries. But anyway, they have a very hard time competing with Gillette. What's interesting with Gillette is Gillette calls their product Gillette Sensor XL Turbo 3. And every time they create a product, they call it Turbo 3 1, Turbo 3 2. Next thing you know, they're going to call it Express Turbo 3, Gillette Sensor Gold, Platinum. They come up with names, but the reality is when you use a Gillette, the product is pre-programmed to let you know that the razor doesn't work. And how do they let you know that Gillette Sensor Turbo XL doesn't work anymore? What does it do? It cuts you and you bleed. So you
Oh,
shave yourself, and then you say, oh, after 2 days, I throw it out. But if you don't wait, think about the 2 days, you just throw it out when it doesn't work and you cut yourself. So, as a good friend relationship, the Gillette is designed to cut you, to let you know, hey, Casey, time to throw it out. Now you're bleeding,
right,
so it's the time to throw it out. What's interesting with Vitry, the company that invented those disposable razors, is it never cuts you out. It's a real friend. What it does is it just shave less and less and less. So when you buy the razor that's
right.
brand new, you can actually shave yourself by going one time around your face, and it takes you 15 seconds. Then maybe the next time, like a week after, you'll have to go 2 times, but it will still cut. So what it does is
Right.
that shaver just cut less and less. So you have to go 2 times, 3 times in the same space, but it doesn't cut you unless you keep it for months. It's not meant to be kept for months. But the Gillette will tell you right away. It's like
They have
very
the
precise.
little yeah, they have the little at the top, like whether blue or green, and if
Yes,
that gets less and less, then it's like, well, obviously it's being used,
that's
but I
right. So there's
mean,
a
but both those companies are essentially disposable, right? It's like, I mean, it is kind of like it is meant to, I guess they're technically like, oh yeah, you could use it, and then okay, now you have to buy another one, or I mean, but I mean, you could take the same concept and what shampoo, uh, so yeah, you could do any product that people use, day in and day out or every day, but uh, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So
but that is interesting though, because like, how do you get a smaller company like that to then uh, compete with a company like Gillette to that has the market cornered because people have just been like, well, this is what
exactly.
I've been
That's
using,
tough.
and yeah, so
There's a company called Dollar Shave that was able to beat them at one
yeah, I
stage.
don't like them. I don't use that,
Yeah.
but yeah, I know what you mean. But like, but I mean that actually that's a good example, right? It's like, oh, people will forego a cheaper product because they're used to using something like I could switch from I'm on a Apple right now, right? Mac. I could switch to a PC, no problem. But like I've been using this for so long that why change, right? Or PC to Mac, but
Yeah.
um,
So yeah, and it's very difficult to make people change. But then eventually people may change. Like, Samsung, they're trying to come up with products. Now they have a phone that has a double size screen because the phone opens and then you're able to use a much bigger screen. Once people see how much you can do with the Samsung, suddenly they realize, oh, this might be a better phone. So you have to have
that's
the
right. That's right.
disruption.
Right.
You, you have to come up with disruptions, and it's people who had the BlackBerry in 2007, 8. They never thought they will let go their BlackBerry, and they did, and nobody would want to just use the BlackBerry anymore. So things do change, and so creating a disruption is very important, and that's really the role of someone who's in marketing is suddenly disrupt and disrupt by coming with a storytelling, like someone just said earlier, coming with a branding, like you mentioned there earlier. So all of these are very important things, and that's what's inside there. But the concept of satisfaction is the most important because not only people will come back, but they will tell other people. So suddenly your costs, your marketing costs are decreased because the more you satisfy, the more you tell other people, and then you become the marketing voice and the best voice. Why? Because there's credibility. When a company tries to sell their product, there is a subjectivity because they're obviously speaking, promoting themselves. But when someone has no interest and looks like he's absolutely objective, that has the biggest power in influencing others. So that's something very important, and it's free. So it's very important to build satisfaction, to grow satisfaction. You don't want to grow over satisfaction systematically. So the businesses that says we're going to try to over satisfy all the time, it's not very good because the fact that over satisfying, you have to get people to pay for this over satisfaction. And not everyone wants to be over satisfied. People want to be satisfied, and that's good enough. So when do you over satisfy? You over satisfy when you screwed up and you try to compensate. You over satisfy when people think you're not a really good company and now you're going to build 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, a year of over satisfaction in order to compensate for the image that you have that is weak. You over satisfied because you want to gain market share. So you want to try to build this satisfaction to the point that you over satisfy because you want people to talk about your product positively and gain market share. But the fact of trying to systematically over satisfy, this is not a good strategy. Morgan, go ahead.
Back to your original thought about repeat customers and returning
Yes.
customers. I think that, let me pull up your slide. I think it's uh, if your satisfaction is high, you'll get repeat customers, and then essentially your returning customers uh, become marketers for the product themselves,
Yes.
and without you having to do any labor because they are in turn recommending your service to other people. So it's kind of like they become unpaid marketers of the
Yes.
product just by being so satisfied by it.
Yes, that's right.
So it's
So
a chain of marketing.
that's correct. So I mean, that's the beauty of social media is the peer-to-peer and people talking about your product. You're just posting and you hope it goes viral, right? And you just hope it goes viral because you want the people to do the social media for you. So you create good content. And sometimes you create good content and your content is just fantastic, but it doesn't catch. it just doesn't catch because there is no, how can I say, drama. There's always, if people will be satisfied if there's drama, but if there's no drama, if it becomes neutral and therefore it becomes like silence. So you want to satisfy, you want them to become a fan, like you're saying, and then they become sort of your um, your your soldiers for promoting your product. And so this is very, very important. So that's kind of like the best case scenario is when people love your product so much that they advocate your product. And that's the best marketing. And it's kind of funny because the reality is in a way it's kind of strange because the more you have people advocating for your product, the more it's justified that you have more staff in marketing because you don't need this marketing people, the clients are doing the marketing. So it's sort of you're taking away your job by having more and more of these people being fans, but that's where you want to go because it's once you get it, you still have to nurture this. Think about companies that I don't know, 25 years ago, nobody cared, like Red Bull. And now Red Bull, obviously, it's such a successful company. And all the other company that created a Me Too Red Bull, Monsters and all of these different things, creating this Me Too. So, there is always room. And that's what's fascinating is that could there be another beverage that becomes the next beverage? Yes, there is, but someone has to constantly come up with something. So remember those different words? Is this going to be the typical question in the quiz? Yeah, and the typical question in the quiz, it will be what is marketing? And there'll be four definition, and one is this, and three are something else, and you just have to remember what they are. Another quiz question may be out of those five concepts, which one do you think is the most important in the definition of marketing? And it would be satisfaction because that's really what builds everything. It's the center of the nucleus. Um, all the things I'm trying to teach are things are practical things that are establish the foundation of your understanding of business and how you look at the market. Because the marketing is, as the word market, is understanding the market. So now here's another question for you: Can marketing create needs? Can can marketing create needs?
Yes,
How can it?
by using um observing people's behavior and using surveys and creating seeing niches and then you market to let these people know that like L'Oreal, the people really didn't know they needed sunscreen.
Yes,
But he came at it not from like, oh, I got this product that's going to be good for you. I'm pretty sure they related it to the skin and the health of the skin. So yeah, you can give people information.
that's right. You inform them. Yes. Okay, so I'll discuss this just in a second. Let's hear Justin.
So I guess the initial example I thought of was, I guess, like slightly dark, but um, when you said marketing creates needs, the first thing I thought of was like the fashion industry and essentially just the idea of creating, I guess, in simple terms, like insecurity in people and creating this idea that like, oh, you feel bad about yourself, so you need this thing to make you feel better about yourself in in a way.
So
Appealing to low self-esteem.
yeah, so you're correct. Here's the little trick behind this is it depends on your definition of what needs are. So then if you're looking at needs from Ashley was talking about self-esteem from the Maslow hierarchy of needs, where you have the physiological needs, the basic needs, you need to eat, the the social needs, the needs that you need to belong to some kind of culture, some kind of group, have some identity, the self-esteem needs that you need to feel that you have some kind of status within this environment, and then the last need, which is the achievement, the very self-oriented, not socially oriented need that you just need to feel good about yourself. So there's all this hierarchy of needs, and at the end of the day, if you use that definition of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, you cannot say that marketing creates those needs. In a way, it's even more dark, using again Justin word, because at the end, what marketers do is they just look at human needs and then they articulate those needs into new products that would satisfy those needs. So you create products that will do this. So you come up with solution to problems, and you just come up with better solution to existing problems. So the problems are all the same, is that you need transportation, you take the bus, then you're tired of the bus, you buy a car, then tired of the car, you take the Uber, you're tired of the Uber, you buy a car again. So you go through these, and so what happens is that the need essentially is transportation. The need is to go from point A to point B, right? But what you do is you constantly create a want. At the end, do we need Red Bull? No. Do we need water? Yes. Like if you don't breathe, if you don't drink, if you don't eat, it's just a physiological thing. You will be dying. So these you do need, and marketers didn't create these. But what they're going to tell you is they say, no, you need In-N-Out burger, right? That's what you need. And they're going to tell you In-N-Out Burger is good, and you need those Nestle products, and you need Procter and Gamble, and you need Gillette, and you need. So all of these things is what they want you to believe that you need, because eventually there's very few things that you need, but you end up wanting more that you really need. And so marketing is in the business of making you believe that you need, right? And sometimes it's even more um, kind of dark in the sense that they create a need that becomes physiological. So I use the example of the one of the biggest marketing company in the world, which is American. It's called McKinsey. McKinsey is not a company that you may know because they're very discreet, but yet if you put McKinsey, you'll find it's one of the largest US company that exists. And they're very large because they do the marketing of pretty much everything. And one of the things that they did is they did the marketing of a drug called Oxycontin. And they made this drug, which is a pain relief, and they marketed it so well that eventually, right now, they have a $1 billion penalty for being too good at marketing it. And Purdue is a company that is in bankruptcy because it's been too good at selling it. Because eventually, when you take this pain relief, you create a dependency where your body creates some kind of reaction, and eventually, after a few pills, that you need the pill in order to not get depressed and not get sick and so forth. So a lot of people overdosed on the pill, and a lot of people in America died. Um, if not already, there's going to be a lot of Netflix movies on this, and everybody's going to watch Netflix and know the story between McKinsey, Oxycontin, and Purdue Pharmacy. If you don't already know, it's becoming kind of mainstream. Everybody knows about it. But here, it's even more dirty in the sense that they created a need for the pain relief, and then they created the need from the dependency from the drug. So what you need to remember is the definition of the need is therefore what generates the answer or yes or no. You can't create needs because needs all exist. It's how people solve those needs is what marketers do. So marketers should not be thinking about creating the need, but should be the best one at understanding the need. So could you be a good marketer if you're a good psychologist? Yes. Could you be a good marketer if you're a good dentist, a good pharmacist, a good doctor? Yes. The more you know about people needs, and the more you go and know about people's mind and psychology, the more you can manipulate this psychology to create the wants that will be the next best want. Do people know what they want? People don't really know what they want. I'm not saying they never know what they want or they don't know what they want, but it's very difficult for people to express what they want. The job of a marketers is to tell people what they want and hook them on getting what they want. Are the best musicians, best songs, are they the most sold songs? Maybe not. You know, maybe mediocre things sometimes are the things that succeed the most. Why? Because they have a better marketing than good things. So marketing can be what makes something mediocre become excellent. So Marketers cannot create needs. Marketers can help people articulate their needs into wants. Marketer can help create wants. Marketers seek to create satisfaction. So that's a summary of everything I've been saying since the beginning. It's this idea of satisfaction. Is as a marketing person, as a business person, and it's going to become even more clear in the next class because that's going to be 100% of what you will be doing in the next class after this class is finished because you will turn yourself into an entrepreneur is you're going to have to look at the world, the music world, and come up with a unique idea that does not exist, that is solving a existing problem in a better way by launching this idea and telling us about you create this. But you first have to understand this is you are solving problems, you're increasing satisfaction as you make people even more satisfied with what you're selling. So your value is the value of your offer that is perceived by your target customers, which means what's important is not what you think, what I think, but what the customer thinks. If you want to be successful, give the customers what the customer wants, which means that not all customers are the same. So for you to understand the customer is number one. Understand who are the customers, understand what do they want. The more you understand them, the better you do. During the Christmas time, I remember buying a few gifts and I went through the store and I took those two gifts or whatever. And I say, oh, gee, I'm so excited. I'm finished with my Christmas gift. And this lady looked at me at the counter and she said, oh, you're lucky. Just these two gifts and you're done for the Christmas? I say, no. What I do is I don't try to buy all the gifts that I want to buy during Christmas. I've a few years ago started to buy the gifts much before because the people that I know exactly what they like. If I try to buy all the things that they like during Christmas, I'm probably going to get 50% satisfaction. So what I do is during the year when I see something and I go, oh, that would be perfect for so and so, I buy it and then I hide it or whatever. And then when comes Christmas, those gifts are actually very satisfying because I found the right gift for the right person. So it's like inviting your brother or sister for dinner is you know what they like. You're not gonna be making the wrong dinner because you know who they are. The more you know the people, the better you can anticipate you can satisfy them by cooking for them because you know them. The less you know the people, maybe they even have food allergies. They may be even dying at your dinner if you don't pay attention. So that's why it's very important to understand the customers. So trying to pretend that you know who's the customers because you think the customer is you and making the product for you, thinking the customer is going to like it, that's a big mistake. The best thing is to sort of go and learn about the customers. And the more you know the customers, the more likely you will succeed. This is why sometimes small companies do better than big companies. Why? Big companies are comfortable. Big companies are making millions of dollars. Big companies have thousands of employees. They've been rolling and doing well, and they have a kung fu lock on the distribution channel, and there's not much you can do. And then someone comes up with the most amazing idea, and then their company blows up and becomes huge. And eventually, the big company can't even buy them because that company became too big. Because these people, they started from scratch. The person that launched this company really looked at the customer and really tried to satisfy the customer. They were in love with the customers. They were in love with the problem of the customer. They are not in love with their solution. If you fall in love with your solution, you cannot come up with another solution because you never change this successful solution to destroy, to create a new solution. So if you're in love with the problem of your customers, then you constantly create the new generation of product that will be successful. Do you have any questions or any comments? So here's a simple thing is if you, I don't know, young and not married, would you drive a motorcycle? If you're young and you just have a relationship, would you drive a coupe? If you now have kids, your car is probably going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Simple, very stereotypical things I was going to say. If you look at breakfast cereal, why do you have all of these different breakfast cereal? When you look at breakfast cereal, what do you notice first? Is you notice that all the successful breakfast cereal, they have a cartoon character, which means if you don't have a cartoon character, most likely you will not succeed. So to succeed in the breakfast cereal business, most of them need to have a cartoon character. Okay. Are breakfast cereal good for kids' health? No. Are they good for the parents? Yes. Why? Because the kids can make their own breakfast cereal. So mom is working, dad is working. Therefore, the kids can do the breakfast by themselves. So it's convenient. Is it good for the kids? Not really. But the kids anyway is sort of this affluent kid, comfortable kid, very hard to satisfy and so forth. So what you do is you develop the best breakfast cereal that's going to be entertaining. So the kid is not eating breakfast, the kid is being entertained by the story of what the breakfast is about. Okay, so marketers of breakfast cereal, that's what they know, is the cartoon character is what makes the biggest difference. And so if you have this product, you have the 19.99 and the 69.99, which one would you buy? And I tell you what, there's no good answer. It's just a different choice. And you may buy one time and another one for another time.
It's the same brand.
Yeah,
Well, because one's a good buy because it's
well,
on sale.
Yeah,
let's
pretend
say,
they're different, I guess.
yeah,
One could be a higher maybe maybe the one for 70 is a better known product or lasts longer, and the one that's on clearance does not.
that's
I
right.
just made
That's what,
something up.
yeah, but that's what people would think. They would think, do I use it a lot? If I use it a lot, I buy the 69.99. If I don't use this product very often, I'll buy the cheapest one. If it's for my home, I'll buy the 69.99. If it's to go on the weekend in an Airbnb and I throw it in the trunk of the car, camping or whatever, I'll buy the 19.99. So different context. But at the
It
end,
it also too like uh where is the consumer that's being marketed to? Where like you in your previous or I guess two slides ago, where are they in life?
yeah,
Are they
whether in
just
life.
starting out? Are they going off to college?
That's right.
Or do they have spending power
Exactly.
and they can afford it? Yeah, so it all depends.
It all depends. Is it for sale in a Walmart? Is it for sale in a Nordstrom? You know, in Nordstrom, you'll see this, you buy the more expensive one. In Ross, you see this, you buy the cheaper one. So it all depends. There's all kinds of context. Here, that's what I said. There's no true answer. There's just a contextual answer. So that's what's very important. And in fact, you don't know this yet, but a lot of my questions, the answer is it depends. And so eventually you'll see every time you'll answer is you won't have a total unique answer is you will see that it's very contextual. And marketing is like this, is to understand that you have to always look at the context. And you may be making this product and you'll have a different price. I sell it in one country at 19.99 and I sell it in another one in 69.99. I mean, I grew up next to Monaco. If you sell this in Monaco, you sell the 69.99. You'll be crazy to sell it the 19.99. The 19.99 probably sell none. You could not exactly the same product. The 19.99 nobody would buy it in Monaco because they would be scared that it's so cheap. People don't go back if they haven't spent $200-300 just by per transaction. They just think something is wrong. They go to the restaurant and they spend $200 for a breakfast. If it's less than that, they go home and they call their doctor. They think they're going to get sick or something because they so little spend. And so it's all contextual. So the reality of the game, so now I'm very cynical, but business is a game. It's a process. It's essentially to make money. You have something to sell, someone has money. You want their money, but you want they to be satisfied. Okay? So the idea is to create an understanding of matching the problem with the needs of the people, with the product and the ideas. It's this combination of ideas, product, needs, opportunities, problem. And then what's very important is the execution. Is have you figured out the price you're going to sell it for? Have you figured out the number of people that you need in order to do this? The channel of distribution, the communication, the brochures, the internet website, the social media and posting and so forth. So execution in business is also very important. Having the best product is not sufficient. Having the best price is not sufficient. You need all kinds of things. That's why entrepreneurship is so difficult because you need to have everything else. So I'm going to use all kind of example because there's people that know about cars, but there's some people that don't know about cars, and therefore this is irrelevant. But let's say we're looking at cars and we have cars that are called V4. Normally, if it's called V4, it's because there's four cylinders. But you also have something called V6. That means it's usually six cylinder. And then you have V8. It usually means it's has an engine with eight cylinders. But then, what if someone comes and call it V Grandmaster Turbo 8? Why would they call it V Grandmaster Turbo 8?
Because they're trying to be different than other the other products, right? They're trying to differentiate themselves.
Well, there's a differentiating, but there's also trying to for people to hear what you didn't say. If you, a lot of people, if you say V Grandmaster Turbo 8, they would think it's got to be a V8. I don't know what it is. It's sort of V8. It sounds like V8. So by doing this, is you create a situation where you can sell it much cheaper, but people will think they're getting much more out of it. So understanding
Uh,
how people think
yeah.
and understanding the mistake of the processing, it's like our brain is a computer, but it's not a perfect computer. It makes mistakes in processing information. There's interpretation, misinterpretation. So you want people to misinterpret positively something and see more than what it is for them to think it's more value. Because when people buy, there's two things. They buy from value and they buy from satisfaction. Value is what people see something is worth before buying. So before you buy, you look at what am I getting? How much am I paying? That's value. Satisfaction is done post purchase. Is what did I buy? What did I get from what I bought? I'm using it. Does it do what I expected it to do? So that satisfaction makes you come back. Value makes you buy. Value is like decoration. Value is like makeup, right? But satisfaction is actually the relationship. It's the durable. It's the true nature of what you're getting. So I'll give you another example. I just changed. And I give you an example of the cognac industry because it's an industry that I know very well. I actually won three times world best cognac maker. I've worked in various industries, and that's one of them where I won a lot of kudos. So I have a brand of cognac, and none of them is on the screen, but I used other brands. So, for example, the cognac is broken down into a category which is called VS, very special, VSOP, very superior oil pale, and then XO, extra oiled. So, when you sell the cognac, you sell it with these acronyms VS, VSOP, XO. Most people don't really know what it is. I don't know. I don't even know if anyone really knows what it is. But people, when they buy it, is if they hear XO, they expect spending a lot of money. And if they hear the one with V, they expect to spend less money. So a lot of brands of cognac, what do? They do is they created some names for the product. So Martel created a product called Cordon Bleu, for example. So when people buy Cordon Bleu, they totally forget to think about the VS, the VSOP, and the XO. They have no idea what it is, if it's a VS, VSOP, or an XO. So why would you do this? Well, because there's a price affinity with the different products. So the VS, it has to be the cheapest, the VSOP, the medium, and the XO, the most expensive. But if you sell a Cordon Bleu, what you want, the dream, is to sell at the price of an XO, but in reality inside you have a VS. So that way you can get the biggest profit margin. Because when you sell within a category, unfortunately, you are within the price category. So if you give it a name, suddenly it changes everything. So most of the cognac brands, that's what they do. But there is worse than that. There's even companies that sell vodka that do exactly the same thing. So this, for example, is a brand that started as a hobby, as a joke. They never thought that they would be making millions of dollars with it. And that's what they did. They call it 20 grand vodka, but they wrote cognac at the bottom very big. Most of the people who bought this product, so they were buying cognac. Why is this? Well, first, vodka is mostly clear. You could have a aged vodka, but that doesn't make much sense. So most of the vodka is just clear. But the people also don't expect a vodka to come out from a presentation that looks like a cognac. And at the end of the day, at that time, at the beginning, this company was not very famous. 20 grand vodka. They didn't see it. They didn't know what it was. All they saw is a presentation that looks like a cognac with the word written cognac, very bold. So what did people do? They look at the price and they saw it was $25 and they said, oh, wow, for a cognac, that's very cheap. So they bought it and they sold millions of bottles. Why did people buy this product? Because it looks like cognac. It's much better price, and anyway, it's to get drunk, so who cares? But the reality is, if they paid attention, it says between vodka and cognac, it says what it is, but it's written so small. Why did these people wrote it so small? I don't know. It's a coincidence. No, it's not a coincidence. Is it says infused with. And so most people don't even know what infused with means, which is beautiful. If they don't know what infused means, they think maybe, I don't know, maybe there's some cognac in there. They don't know that infused means there's maybe one drop of cognac in this. How could one drop of cognac make the entire vodka look so dark? It's a miracle. It's magic. And so this company became extremely successful. They couldn't stop. This was like printing money. So it's very important to understand this concept. And I'm not telling you that to do good marketing, you need to rip people off. What I've been saying since the beginning here is that it's very important to understand that there's a very important psychological aspect in marketing, which consists in understanding the more you understand the consumers and the more the way they think, the exact problem that they have, and what are the things you need to do in order to satisfy them more than they are satisfied right now by the existing consumers. That's very important for creating your next campaign, your next product line, and so forth. So in every industry, it works exactly the same. Now, another thing I want to say that is very important with marketing is what's called the marketing mix, the four components of marketing, which is called the four P's: product, price, promotion, and place. And so we'll review these independently, but I just wanted you to know that there's a concept called four P's: product, price, promotion, and place, and that's also called the marketing mix. So that's kind of like very, very basic. Probably some of you already knew this. Why does it start with a P? Well, because it's convenient. A product is what you sell, the price is how much you're going to sell it for. Promotion is a little confusing because really promotion should be called communication. That would be the better word for it. So they call it promotion. It's a little confusing, but if they call it communication, it would be PPC, and suddenly you lose the four P's. And the last one, place, it should not be place, it should be D for distribution. So normally, if we lived in a perfect world, it would be PPCD. But then you couldn't say the four P's, which is much more catchy and a better marketing story behind it. When you sell and you're in marketing, you think about the performance, how much did I spend and how much did I get? How much did I communicate and how much did I get? How much did I communicate and how many people know about my product? Time, money, and return on those investments is very much the financial accountability of marketing. So if you're spending some marketing money, you should get some result. Um, so often I'm doing a marketing project, and I ask the client, what is your marketing budget? And with the students, like the client we're doing, they don't have a marketing budget. My other class, I have clients, they don't have a marketing budget, yet they want to do better marketing without a marketing budget. It's not possible. You have to have a marketing budget to do better marketing. So it's important to therefore think about the budget and think about what you're spending in marketing, and you want to see a return on investment on what you've spent. There is also a social impact. So if you're looking at this pharmaceutical company called Purdue and OxyContin and the McKinsey company, you just have to Google that, and it's kind of a horror stories. It's billions, several billions of dollars of lawsuits for these companies having done something that it's sort of called a huge crime. There's thousands of people who died because of that. Those three companies working together in order to increase the sales of this product. But another company where we don't even know how many thousand people died, but it's a company called Monsanto, which has made many different chemical products, including one called Roundup, which is still for sale. You go to Home Depot and you can still buy it. But they have huge lawsuits, and for the that started 30 years ago, but they've pretty much won every one of those lawsuits until recently, which actually made Monsanto being purchased by Bayer, and so now it belongs to Bayer. But anyway, the environment has been very much affected also because of all of this. So when you make marketing decisions, you have impact on the society, you have impact on your environment, and that's something is very, very
Can,
important.
can I ask
Yes,
a question about
yes, yes,
the marketing? So, if you were to take a client, right? So, using the client that we're, the band that we're looking at, so they say they have no, uh, or let's not use it in a band case. Let's say it's another company, right?
yeah,
And they say, hey, we're just starting out. We don't have a marketing budget. You know, how how have you approached things like that? Because you can give all these recommendations, and then, I mean, I guess they don't have to use the recommendations, right? But
yes,
like, it's also kind of like, well, you're spending that time to come up with something. The idea is, okay, they might use some of these, but if they don't have a budget for that, and maybe the company, the band is not as successful
yes.
yet. I mean, that would it be something of like you would then utilize, for, you would rely heavily on, say, social media and go, hey, you know, you could use Instagram, you can use, TikTok, Facebook, you can use things that aren't necessarily traditional ways of marketing, but that might be a way to kind of skirt around it.
Yeah, yes. So first, what happens is when you have a client, you have to come up with, several months plans on how they should grow. The first 3 months, you don't have a marketing budget, so what you do is you work in collaboration. So you collaborate. And in fact, in just a few minutes, um, there will be a group presenting matters, which is the first stage of matters, is collaboration. And so from this collaboration, you don't spend money, you don't get big results, but you get some momentum. There needs to be some momentum at the beginning because you need to have an ambitious program with some objectives and milestones. There is the final milestones, maybe you need $10,000 budget per month, but it's after 3 years. And when you get to that final milestones, you need a revenue that will allow you to afford that marketing budget. From day one, the $10,000 looks to be $10,000 too many dollars that you can't afford. But after 3 years, once you've done all of these different activities and fulfill all these different objectives, you are able
Mm,
to make the money that will afford you to do those things. So you have to scale it like this. So at the beginning, oftentimes, is collaboration. It's a partnership, collaboration. Someone is missing something that you have, and what they have that they're paying
mm,
for because of the time they spent and all of this, you offer something. So this bartering at the beginning is really what's going to build the momentum that you are becoming more um, financially worth something because
mm.
of the size of your business, the activities that you do. And this is that's what you do. You're really trying to build that momentum. I have I have a new business for the past year right now where I've developed a new line of fashion product, and the amount of money that I need to spend for those fashion products is really huge. And so what I do is I'm lucky because I have a very good digital marketing program. Um, I like the one of the last video I had over 1.5 million views. So I get so many views. I had in the past 13 months almost 14 million views. So I do more than a million view per month for my social media for that business. that I became sort of a the business has become an influencer. So I'm able to do a lot of collaboration with businesses that are much bigger than me, but they don't have this level of influence. So they use me for the influence, and I use them for the fact that they are renting a studio, that they are renting models, that they are renting locations and the equipment and all this. So then that really improves a lot the quality of the video that I produce, and at the same time they gain from the exposure of the fact that when I put it in my media, it gets a lot of views. So there's all kinds of way you want to build at the beginning that doesn't
Right.
cost as much money, and it's very important to see this. The reality, and obviously for the band that you're working for this f- in this class, their social media and everything needs a lot of help and so forth, and therefore you're gonna have to creatively find some ways for them to multiply this, and not just from the fact that they have to pay for it. Before they pay for it, you have to create a success story without financial assets at the beginning, and therefore
Right.
you have to go very minimum and bare bone and come up creatively with some momentum. Building the momentum at the beginning is very important. Maybe that momentum is going to take 1 year. Maybe your plan is the first year, no money, and it's going to take a year to build some level of success. But from this level of success, that's the first key that we need in order to open that first door, in order to get to the second stage. I remember when I explained this to the students from my class from that finished in December, there's one student that says, "Oh, that's funny. That reminds me of a rocket ship that has three parts." And the rocket ship is trying to go to the moon, but it's not going to go to the moon uh, as the integral rocket ship. It's going to be three engine that's going to come out of the rocket ship, and it's going to break into three parts. And I said, wow, that's exactly right. And then when they came to do the presentation to the clients, that's what they use. They use the analogy of the three parts of of the shuttle that would break down, and then the engine will fuel the second engine, and then it would fuel the third engine. And they used this within a time period, and then the client was like, wow, I understood everything between the period and the three piece of the engine. That was really good. In addition, that client had a partnership with NASA, so it was perfect because we used he had he, he was an engineer and he worked with the NASA on some of his products and so forth. So he was sponsored by the NASA. And so that was also very relevant to the story of the clients that we use the rocket ship for the three stages. But you have to come up with those things. So that's why if you look at the past clients, and some of you will be presenting one client and some of you will be listening, by listening to this presentation, you'll see there's all kinds of ways. And that's very repetitive. Is you need to have objectives and you need to break down baby steps, and you need to explain to clients why you have selected those baby steps and what they they're overlapping and they're building from one another, starting as a budget of $0. So it's not easy. Thank you for asking me this,
Yeah.
Casey, but that's
Yeah,
sort of
no problem.
the painful truth about
Yeah,
working with
what's going on in the chat is also very interesting too. Because yeah, it does have to do not so much with or yeah, with resources beyond just how much money's in the bank account. So uh yeah. No, thank you.
yes, that's right. All right, well, yes, so that's the thing is it's important to not say that, because there's a skill set that you have to have in order to create all of these videos and those photos and the narratives. I mean, this, like before Friday, I have to finish a storytelling for a new whiskey that I'm launching, and so all around me, I've got information on wine and whiskey and gins, and so I'm writing the storytelling of that new whiskey, and so that's time. And I've done it for several products I've launched for some celebrities. And so therefore that's a consulting job that I'm really good at, is creating the storytelling behind it. And coming up with all the foundation of why this product should be launched and what's unique about this product, and connecting it with the different facets of the industry and the trends and all of this. So that when you do it for yourself and then you have collaborators that come and so forth, it's not everyone knows how to do this thing, so you have to sort of monetize this as an asset that is an investment in the business. For, even they may be spending some hard money, there's some skills that should be sort of connected to a dollar value as well, as a balance to the money that may be invested. Absolutely. So, what I like to do is take a 10-minute break, and then when we come back, so I see it's 7:58. So let's say at 8:10, when we come back at 8:10, we'll jump into the presentation from Madas, because that's very important that um, we get the first one coming. So that way everyone's going to get a feel of, okay, what it is to present a client and a band. It's a band. I think it's the only band. No, no. Well, there's one. It's a husband and wife hardcore, but this one is the closest one to your client that you're doing here. So it's very important to see what will be presented.
All right, John,
Roll.
give us the countdown whenever, and I'll start my
All
timer.
right. 3, 2, 1, start. All right. Hello, Professor Vigneron and cohort 13. We are group 1, consisting of Jonah, Colby, Brittany, Casey, and myself, John. And today we are presenting on Mattis, which is an indie rock band in the Los Angeles area with a lot of potential. Next slide, please. So with sounds similar to the Arctic Monkeys, the Killers, and the Strokes, Mattis has a chance to thrive in the current market if the right strategy is implemented. Next slide, please. So our group has conducted research and collected data on the band to see where Mattis stands in the current industry and what kind of strategic proposal we can provide to help ensure their success in the future. Next slide, please. So with frontman Dugan Cruz, guitarist Pat Rector, bassist Brett Carpenter, and drummer James Prinzi, this four-piece band really charms and scratches the itch of consumers' love for early 2000s indie sounds with their hits such as Find Another Girl and Play Pretend. Next slide, please. So although this band has strengths such as their sound, their performance skills during live shows, we do believe that Mattis is not tapping into their true potential, which brings us to the moment of truth. Next slide, please. So overall, with a lack of social media presence and marketing efforts, Mattis is still in the early stages of artistry, and they really need to grow in order to meet their goals. Next slide, please. So they are currently playing in small capacity venues such as Harvard and Stone, but through our interviews with them, they discussed their aspirations to play larger capacity venues and plan international tours at venues such as the Mercedes-Benz Arena in Berlin, Germany. Next slide, please. So as it stands, we need to focus on developing their following in the United States domestic market, especially in Los Angeles where they're based. So they can really build up hype and start trending, which will allow them to meet their goals of international touring. Next slide, please. So in order to grow, initially Mattis needs to treat their band as a business, and this requires effort and time commitment from each member of the band. Next slide, please. So the first and most important aspect of this is that Mattis must focus on their social media presence, whether it's short form content of rehearsals or behind the scenes footage to long form content of interviews and live shows. Each member needs to really be brainstorming new content ideas that will help keep the audience engaged, which brings us to capital, which really until they have the capital, it'll just open the door, and through getting on social media and collaborating, they'll have new opportunities. And we have actually selected 3 possible opportunities where Mattis can use their recorded music, band aesthetic, and artistry to help grow their capital and increase exposure for the band. Next slide, please. So all of this is going to be focused in Los Angeles, and right away we are thinking about the thrift store market. So 34% of Gen Z shop at thrift stores frequently, and 64% of millennials and Gen Z prefer buying secondhand over new clothing, which really drives sustainability and ethical consumerism. So Mattis's sound fits very well in this market. Next slide, please. We then move on to commercial opportunities with sync licensing. The US sync market alone generated over $302 million from musicians in 2021. Mattis's music is very marketable and it could be synced in various commercials. Next slide, please. And then, of course, we have video game sync opportunities. With the right sync placement in an indie game or a AAA title, Mattis could really secure capital and increase exposure and audience engagement for the band. And I want to hand it over to Casey to introduce you to Mattis's target market and demographics.
Thanks, John. I'm going to dive into what Mattis listener is and their demographic, and talk a little about market research. The Mattis listener in 2020 was comprised of 35% female and 65% male, with the majority of the Gen Z and millennial demographic making up 60% of their total listener base. And to the right, you can see the major markets that Mattis would be popular in. Next slide. But if we fast forward to 2025, so at this point, this data was taken off of Chartmetric. So we can see the split between male and female has stayed constant. So this is 2021. So here it went up to male listenership went up to 10%, or decreased 10%, while female listenership increased a little over 10%. And then in the 18 to 34 demographic, it rose actually by 13% in just 1 year. And so this was taken off Chartmetric. Next slide. So now, if you fast forward to 2025, you can see that the split has stayed constant, and that there's actually a small dip in listenership among Gen Zs and millennials. And also, if you look to the right, so I wasn't able to get actual cities, but you can see that the number one market for Mattis has 69% of their listenership in the United States, but also there's 30% in Mexico. So that is something that if they wanted to explore touring with internationally, that'd be something worth exploring. So next slide. So who is Mattis's listeners? Next slide. So this is Allie. She's 16. She loves going to concerts and supports local favorite bands, and she has limited spending power. So if we were to take Allie and fast forward to today, she hypothetically might be finishing college, and then have the same spending power maybe. So our next fan would be Laura, 26 years old, lives in New York, and then loves thrifting and vintage fashion, and has moderate spending power. If we were to fast forward to 2026, she'd be 32, and I think that the demographic, or not the demographic, the spending power would also be increased, and this could be a positive for Mattis for as far as selling merchandise, concert tickets, etc. Next slide. And so then finally we have Alex, and so he's 23, lives in Los Angeles, loves music, lives attending gaming conventions, and has moderate spending power. And I think if you were to also then fast forward to, and that was again 2020, if we were to fast forward to today, he'd be hypothetically, 29 years old, and might have some more spending power to be able to spend on more of Madison's music and going to concerts and things like that. And so, how do we get from A to B? And so, we think that two major factors are thrifting and video games. And for that, I'm going to pass it on to Brittany, where she has some exciting opportunities to share.
Hi, yes. So for our next slide, the next slide, please. So we would like to do a collaboration with Buffalo Exchange and Mattis. Next slide, please. And then Buffalo Exchange is a privately owned fashion reseller in the US. They sell pre-owned and name brand items, and they're known to have a lot of vintage and designer items here as well. The emerging band Mattis has something unique to offer them because they are creatively style and rock and roll energy that is desperately lacking in Buffalo Exchange marketing. Mattis' distinct aesthetic will match perfectly with Buffalo Exchange branding. Next slide, please. So, why Buffalo Exchange? They make a lot of money a year. They have over 41 stores across the US. They have a need for stronger marketing. And as of now, Buffalo Exchange doesn't have any commercials and or ads. Next slide. And so here's the game plan. Next slide, please. So Buffalo Exchange, as I mentioned previously, they do not have any commercials or ads. So Mattis will create a song in partnership with Buffalo Exchange, while Mattis receives an upfront licensing fee and a performance royalties generated from public exhibition. This partnership introduces Mattis to a broader retail audience and strengthens their credibility in brand collaboration space, while Buffalo Exchange will be able to access authentic artist-driven content aligned with youth and sustainability. Um, a collaboration with Buffalo Exchange will merge music and sustainable fashion culture, bringing fresh content, exclusive events, co-branded experiences, and then they will send out a letter for this collaboration. So it's a collaboration letter where it'll tell the company, such as Buffalo Exchange, everything about the band. We will also want to include a one sheet that has a current discography, um, also their shows, any chart metrics, and QR codes. Next slide, please. So here is a timeline. So for the first year, the year will center around launching Mattis' partnership with Buffalo Exchange through a high visibility creative activation. In the first quarter, Mattis will collaborate with Buffalo Exchange to film a music video inside one of their flagship locations, preferably LA, showcasing the brand's curated racks, sustainability mission, and in store culture in an organic and lifestyle driven way. The video will naturally integrate Buffalo Exchange visual identity and thrift forward aesthetic while remaining, authentic to the brand sound and image. And then I'm going to pass this on to Kobe.
Thanks, Brittany. So as we continue into year two, we really want to focus on creating compositions and songwriting for the video game industry. The video game industry is actually the largest sector uh, grossing profit in the entertainment industry with I believe in 2024 it grossed over 200 billion, which is significantly larger than the music industry. And this just follows along the line of gaining capital for Mattis as it's something they don't really have right now. So next slide. So to create these connections with studio heads at the gaming studios, we want Mattis to perform at industry conventions. And this will be a mix of both music and gaming conventions like PAX, DICE, and NAMM. Next slide. So through connections made at these conventions, we'd really like Mattis to shoot for getting a sync license deal, preferably with an indie game at the end of year two, as this would help create capital and awareness of the band. Next slide. As year three rolls around, we want to aim for the stars here and try and get a AAA title to sync Mattis's music with. And this could be Call of Duty, but there's a large amount of AAAs out there, and this will significantly increase the amount of revenue. And then there's these National Association of Record Industry Producers, and at these events, you can meet these music supervisors and pitch your music to them. Next slide. And then just to continue to create virality for the band, it's never a bad thing to have, good social media presence. We want to create a flash mob video for the band and maybe team up with an influencer. And this will just help create a global awareness of the band, maybe outside of, Los Angeles or the United States. Next slide. And as we end year three, we want to really capitalize on the efforts we've put into creating capital for the band and use that money we've made to plan a tour. And we'd like to create an international tour if possible, hitting some of those larger international markets like Mexico that Casey touched on, and maybe even performing at the Mercedes-Benz arena in Germany that the band had a goal of playing at. Next slide. And with that, I'll pass it off to Jonah.
All right, gang. So, on top of the prior cohort group's presentation, we thought it'd be an interesting inclusion to take a look at where the band is today, in regards to the latest additions to their discography, recent show history, and general presence in the LA scene. So as we may have mentioned earlier, this particular project on Mattis was presented in 2020, which of course was not the greatest year to try and launch a series of live show pop-ups with a brick and mortar retailer. Suffice to say, the band's scheduled run of DIY shows never came to fruition, nor were they able to, it seems, get into any serious talks with notable video game developers to pursue their sync licensing goal. As so many burgeoning artists did during COVID, Mattis struggled to build momentum and capital in the months following Cohort 7's proposal, as soon enough not a single band in the scene was playing indoors. But while Mattis was unable to capitalize on the poignant recommendations from Cohort 7, it does seem that they spent their own time in the quarantine era writing and recording a sizable amount of new material, with their latest EP, Magnetricity, releasing in January of 2024. The six-track project stays true to the band's alt-rock influences, like the Killers and the Strokes, while still showcasing a clear refinement of their production style in comparison to their preceding singles. Media-wise, Mattis released a music video for their February 2023 single, Time to Go, to shirk off the COVID cobwebs, and have also since released a number of live sessions to their YouTube channel from both studio and show performances. Like many indie rock bands grinding it out in the highly competitive musical diaspora that is Los Angeles, Mattis have found a considerably successful niche as a cover band for all your favorite millennial bar anthems, stretching from 90s hits from Weezer and the Red Hot Chili Peppers all the way up to the late 2000s with MGMT and Portugal the Man. If it's an underground LA venue, chances are Mattis has played it, with consistent appearances at Harvard and Stone, the Irish Times, and Brennan's at Marina Del Rey. Still, the band continues to strive for wholly original sets, with promises from frontman Dugan Cruz in August of 2025 that the band's first full-length LP is in the works. So despite the obvious worldwide hiccup the pandemic brought to the music industry, how well do Cohort 7's strategic suggestions hold up a half decade later? And the answer is actually surprisingly well. Quite a few mainstream games are looking to the energy and playfulness of the alternative scene to backtrack their Gen Alpha players' experience. Throughout the early 2020s, Canadian indie rockers Good Kid landed a handful of tracks on Fortnite Radio and over a few of the game's seasonal update trailers, while the 2025 remaster of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 included a number of more modern skate culture tracks from Kenny Hoopla and Fontaine's DC. On the thrifting and secondhand market side of Cohort 7's presentation, Mattis might also yet find a new audience waiting for them. The Black Print notes that 83% of Gen Z is willing to shop thrifted goods, and revenue in the global secondhand market has increased by more than a third in the past decade. Whether it be at the Melrose Trading Post, Rose Bowl Flea Market, or other iconic LA locales where the younger generation goes to prospect. Mattis could most definitely find success in playing the live stages of those highly attended and demographically rich environments. Overall, while Mattis was definitely a victim of the times when this presentation's recommendations could have helped them the most, it doesn't seem like Dugan and the gang are quite out of the game yet. While it does seem like new updates for the band have slowed down in the past few months, Mattis's dedication to their niche and classic sound keep them poised to be an underdog, underground force if they can take advantage of their resilience in the LA indie community and release more fleshed out and lengthy projects. And with that, we have finished our presentation and we thank you for listening.
Very good job. I'm very impressed because obviously you had a very short time and you did something that sort of wasn't expected. You actually did a review of what has happened to matters since, which was something that I didn't ask. Maybe I didn't give enough details of all the things you should be covering, but you went and covered something I didn't ask, but that made it very interesting. Um, Having said this, I would like to go into some recommendations and comments for the sake of everyone to learn for the purpose of doing your own presentation for the future groups that will be presenting past clients, but also more importantly for the presentation of your own client and understand the connection that you may have with your future presentation of our client and the past clients. Having said this, and maybe to make sort of everyone at ease, and I've never said this before, but I'm just going to let you know that this assignment was worth 7 points, and I usually never give the grades in 15 years. I never did, but just so you feel more positively inclined to listen to what I have to say in terms of criticism, I'm going to give you 7%, so you get 100% for this assignment anyway. Okay. So now, having said this, allow me kindly to give you some suggestions of what you would want to do in the future. So first, in the future, but you won't have to do that. That's the other groups. We'll have to do this. Is you want to make this presentation as if the client was in the was listening to you. So you're not presenting to the class. So you don't. So for example, there's Lottie that will be presented. There's ARPcore that will be presented. So whoever group other groups will be presenting them, pretend that it's the day of the presentation, as if it's the 14th of March, and you're presenting to the clients versus presenting to the students. Okay, so that's an important thing. And I'm not holding against you. As you can see, I'm giving you full credit for this, for having being the first one. It is a very, very difficult exercise, but I want to be very clear for the groups that are going to come after, is you have to make the exercise as if you're presenting to the clients, because that's the purpose of this, is practice for presenting to the client. Then the next thing I want to say is obviously there's one thing, and with I'm not complaining because you're the first one, but eventually, and that's not, I should not tell you this, but let's say you won't be able to see my lips, so you're just going to hear it. Is normally you're not supposed to say, please next slide, please next slide, please next slide, right? So is this a big problem today? No. Is it a problem? Is if every group's going to do that till March? Yes, I'd be bummed. Eventually, I'd like not to have to hear this. Please, next slide. It has to come more organically, and everyone understand that. It just looks better. Does it have to be organic and not have a next slide on the 14th of March? Oh my God, yes, for sure. When we get to the clients, you don't want to do the next slide, next slide, next slide. For today, that was perfectly fine. I just want to warn you, it looks unprofessional eventually to do this towards the end. Other format things. One thing that is great that you did that I want everyone to see, and I don't know if you did it on purpose because that's how I teach it and that's how the students do it, and then they do it naturally. They don't even realize that if I didn't tell them, they almost never do it this way. But what is very nice is you made the presentation that was very much of a storytelling versus the traditional school-like, SWOT analysis, and after this, segmentation, targeting, positioning, after this, strategies, after this, tactics, and after this, conclusion. So that's the way you do when you're a student and with a professor who's, I don't know, never worked in the industry and so forth. That's how you do it. And I see it like this 98% of the time if I don't ask for a format the way you did it, which was great. You told us a story. So you talk about their strengths, their weaknesses, the problem they're facing, the the style of their music. So it was a all complete story about them without breaking it down in SWOT and all that. So normally what I ask the students is to have the SWOT analysis in the appendix. So if the client wants to see the traditional good old SWOT analysis that everybody does from Pakistan to Burundi to Nigeria to, I don't know, Wales and Iceland and California, you want to have this because that's the formal way of presenting is there's a SWOT. And in fact, I'm asking you to write a SWOT for your draft. If you look in the schedule, there's a timeline. We can look at it in just a minute, but it says, please submit your SWOT to me by that date. It might be even next Tuesday or next Wednesday, sorry, or something like this. And what happens always is when I ask the student to do a SWOT and then do the matters presentation, when I ask them to present the client, they don't do a story anymore. They do a SWOT presentation. So it takes a while for people to realize that the SWOT is like it's like the what you do in the kitchen in the back. But when you present it, it's presented like when you go to the restaurants, it's all infused together in your plate. It's not one plate of carrot, one plate of pistachio, one plate. It's all infused. It's all cooked together. So that's what you did here. You did a all together presentation that was very nicely done. You followed obviously the format of what was done from the students before, so they got trained this way. You went with it. But I just want to say, do not lose this for your own presentation. Keep doing it that way with a more of a storytelling through. And I want the other student consultant to hear this so they can understand that that's how we'd like to see it as a story. So that was really good. Um, the what maybe is kind of was maybe could be accomplished better is to talk about, and that's so often forgotten by the students. It's talk about the problem that the client has. And obviously, this is confidential, it's secret. It's just us speaking to the client. It's not going to be broadcasted to YouTube and to the world. But talk about the fact, your music is good, but it's a music genre that is not the most popular. It's a music genre that really applies to most likely a older group of consumer customers. It's also the fact that you told us very clearly that you don't want to do any social media, that you find that it's very disingenuous. You like to be authentic, and that's good for you. But with all of this, that's a serious problem in 2020 or 2026 still, because you're going to have to create this content, and that's becoming noisier out there, and you have to create better content, more often content, and therefore, for the fact that you don't want to create content, we see it very difficult for you to break through, unless a miracle. So we're going to have to start looking at what could be the things that we do beside a miracle, but they're going to have to be baby steps. So there's a moment, a reveal moment, where there needs to be a much more direct discussion with the client. And then you can bring the fact that with all of these limitations that you have, and that's why you're having a hard time, and it's not easy for us as consultants, is we have to find some niche small steps that you could do that are still going to be constructive for you. And so here here are the steps. And you went into the timeline, and unfortunately I would say, and again, you don't feel blame because you got the maximum point, but it's for the future groups and the future understanding is you want to go more in depth in the timeline in terms of really explaining what are the milestones that they need to do, what do they need to do, when do they need to do it, and you had a number, how much is it going to cost, how much you're going to get. I think that was a detail that was very interesting, but I think you want to eventually, um, for our band Playita, you want to eventually go many more details, and use this format of the first year timeline, the second year timeline, the different milestones, the different objectives, the different things that are really required, the things that you think they should try to do. So they need to be more meat into this because that's really what's important. Another area where there was not very much meat, but I can't blame you because I've almost never seen it in this is my 31st year teaching, I've never almost seen it in 31st years, more than 15,000 students. So you didn't do it. And that's sort of the way is you went into talking about the target, which was presented in a way which is called personas, where you talk about these two girls and then that one gentleman. You have to talk about them saying, okay, so now we looked at your current customers, the current audience, the current fan that you have, and we could make a long description of who they are. But at the end of the day, we don't think they should be your audience in the future because you're going to have to grow into a different direction, which is more in line with who you are because you are X, Y, and Z. And to do this, we're going to use a format which is called the persona presentation. So we're going to use three groups of people that we're going to tell you who they are and what they do, what they want from you, how they're going to consume you, what do they expect, and so forth. So you did this, but you did it by sort of copying the example, which had personas, and you did it as best as you could because you haven't, nobody taught you this, nobody told you that you had to do that. You're learning. So that's why I'm more than happy that to give you the highest grade because you've done a very good job. But it's you can't know what you don't know. So, but eventually those personas are very important. You'll see every group's gonna do a persona, and magically for Playita, all the groups gonna have a set of personas to explain these are the group of customers that we think you should grow. To make it even better, it's most likely that you'll have different personas depending on the year, because obviously that's going to evolve. The first year, these are the people who are your niche target. Then the niche becomes bigger. It spills over into a new group. Who is this new group? Why is this a new group? So now is a little insider is when you make a presentation, the more you say why, you say something and you say why and you explain it, the better it is, because that's your job as a consultant, is to say, here's the solution, what is the problem we're trying to solve, why is this an important problem, why is this an important solution, and why we think this is going to work. So the more you have why in explaining things, the better it is, because that's your job. You're the consultant, you're paid. I know you're not paid, sorry, but you're paid to provide all of the reasoning and justification and arguments behind the mechanics of all of this. Okay. Um, yeah. So the details of the timeline, the detail of the persona, and then just to finish, but don't blame me for telling you that. It's okay, but I enjoyed listening to what you said. But eventually, there is one group that's going to present ARPcore, for example, and ARPcore. I think it was done in 2018. And unfortunately, this was a husband and wife that were married, I don't know, 15 years. And since I know that they have divorced. And so that band most likely doesn't exist anymore. And it's not the fault of Maya Core 10, you know what I mean? It has nothing to do with this. And therefore, if you look for things, you won't find very much the past 2 years. And it doesn't mean because we've done a bad job. It's just life. So when you present it, you have to present as if you were in 2020 or if you were in 2018, playing the role of the presentation just for the exercise of showing the problem, how you're solving it, and give us a lot of details on why, and all of that, using the examples provided to you, and maybe coming up with some other ones that you think could fit in order to just beef up whatever area that you think it's sort of weak, and you could beef it up because you have some good ideas and you just want to maximize the opportunity of this presentation. That's really what it is. But play this back in the day. If at the end you want to make a conclusion and say, no, we're in 2026, there's things that we would recommend if this was a project we are doing it right now. Gee, that's kind of clever. I like that. If we are doing this project right now, as a conclusion, we will also recommend to do four things. One, this, why, two, this, why, three. I'll go, okay, that goes a little beyond the exercise, but it's still within the exercise. It's you playing the role of a consultant, and that's what you're being rated for here. Does that make sense, all of this? Do you have any questions?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sounds good.
it makes sense. Yeah, I like so for the demographics part, I was actually trying to find out where they got their information on the Bay Area, Los Angeles, all that.
Yes.
And I tried to open up some of the um some of the Google Docs, but it wouldn't let me open it because I went on Chartmetric thinking I was going to see a bunch of data, and I didn't have a whole lot to go off of. And then with the 2026, that was more of like, okay, like I wanted to kind of flash forward to today.
Yes.
I actually personally didn't like the avatar stuff they did. But with my slides, I just decided to keep it. Um, so yeah, uh, that was challenging because yeah, some of the data I was trying to figure out, okay, how did they get to this? And so that I wasn't making stuff up. Like the stuff with Mexico, that's off of Chartmetric, and so I added that.
Yes.
But yeah, so
Yeah, that was
I
new.
could have been more, I guess yeah, it could have been more, I don't know, more thoughtful in how I presented it.
Yes, mostly
But
the personas, yes. So, but I don't want you to say that you have to fake it because that's not the word. What you have to do is this is a mock practice exercise.
yeah,
So you won't do this with Playita, for example, coming up with things just to beef up. But here the idea is you just want to show that it's almost this exercise, you could almost say, is it like a lawyer mock-up exercise where we're trying to build evidence and trying to
right.
prove the case?
Yeah,
That's really what it is.
right.
It's just for the exercise, right?
Yeah,
And so the exercise is more important because I just want you to be in the driver's seat that you will
yeah,
be on the 14th of March. Obviously, you're probably thinking it's crazy, like the second session, and that's really nice, to be honest. And I don't want you to
yeah,
pay a heavy price for it because I want you to be fully rewarded for having done what you've done for it.
right.
And so that nobody gets hurt with this. And you learn the exercise, everyone saw you and probably thinking, oh my God, we're going to have to do this. How are we going to? And some people are going to embrace it and realize it's a mock up
Yeah,
exercise. Then it's not a mock up on the 14 because you're going to have to really explain the real data
right.
and it's going to have to be for that exact client. But then, I'll take another one of your presentation, and this will be the one that will be used by the Maya for the future generation. Maybe in 4 or 5 years, the data will be wrong again, and they're going to have to use it again to show that they understood what you're trying to do for that client. And everyone learns from this build up. But yeah, so
Yeah,
an excellent job. I think it's great. Hopefully, you by doing it so early, you're probably a little ahead of everyone in the feeling
yeah,
of what it needs to take, and everyone from looking at you probably starting to get a flavor as well. And it's experience. Everyone is getting this experience for doing it better. And like I said, next class, it come out. All of this will come very naturally. The personas, people talk about it like it's very funny. You hear people in April talking about the personas like it's something they've always knew and they're very comfortable with. But that's where I want you to be, is very comfortable. I- Should you put it on Google or Chat GPT and say, hey, Gemini, Grok, tell me what's personas in marketing and how you use it and all that? You should. Wikipedia, what is personas? And you'll see it's explained there. It's very used. It started being used maybe 15 years ago. Before that, they called it a target analysis. And that's sort of the old way to talk about it. Personas is the more modern way. And personas has more psychological flavors to it, where you really want to talk about and what you want to do, that's very important, is the choice of pictures. So we see here, I think I recognize those pictures. I think you used the pictures from the previous group, and that's okay. But when you do it for Playita, when you talk about the persona of their target, the one, not the one that they have right now, may be very different than the one they should go for. You want to very selectively take these pictures. You could have many more pictures because you want to make a case about these people having some behaviors, having some habits, having um, some customs and rituals and values that you can explain through these pictures to really give a flavor of those kind of people and who they are and why you're gonna go for them. So it's a clever way of saying a lot of things just with image. Sometimes they say an image is worth 1,000 words. That's the idea, is the image will be speaking more than words instead of having bullet points and bullet points and bullet points and bullet points. That's what we're trying to see. A good presentation is the one that has the least bullet point. And that's another thing to remember for the 14th of March. Less words is better. on the slide. And more images and graphs and all that, that's better to make your elements. So thank you very much. I'll use the last 10 minutes just to jump into the few things I want to keep talking about for the class. So jumping right in, I'm jumping to the environment. Why am I jumping to the environment? Because this is from the environment that you will be making the SWOT, which is what you're working on right now. Obviously, from the interviews, there will be a lot of SW. I'm not sure. Usually, there's not too many opportunities that come from the interview with the client from last Saturday. And that's usually why the client needs us, is because we need to find the opportunity for them. Then the threats, there probably a lot of threats, meaning talking about the competitors, talking about problems that they're having and so forth. It's important. What's very important is to see that the SW is internal, so that's only about things related to Playita, versus the opportunities and threats have nothing to do with Playita. Another thing that I said, and I spend a lot of time talking about, is the opportunity is the condition and the environment that you can take advantage and usually that you have strengths for. So if you have something that is a strength and something in the environment that you can take advantage of, these are the best opportunities. Versus the threats are the opposites. It's the things that you're not really good and in the environment, there's things that are problems. So who are these? So just remember this. Opportunities are not ideas, opportunities are facts. So, facts are all these factors in the environment. So, in the environment, you have two layers, like a cake with two layers. You have the layer, the pink layer, and the yellow layer. In the middle of these, you have the company. So, the company is Playita, and what has the biggest direct impact to Playita is what's inside the pink. What has indirect impact to Playita, it's the part in yellow. So inside the pink, you have the most important factor for any business is the customer. Customer is who you're going to be selling to. The one you're selling right now, the one that you could potentially sell. Then you have the intermediary. So an intermediary may be a UPS company. An intermediary could be a consulting agency, a channel member, the accountants, the advertising agency. So there's lots of intermediaries that you need in order to do your business. They have an impact, direct impact on the company. The other big one beside the customer, I would say, is the supplier, the competitors, sorry. So the competitors and the customers are the two biggest one inside the micro environment. So the way I remember it is micro is like microphone, it's close to you. So you have this microphone that you talk to, versus the macro with a Mac, like a Macintosh, is the one that is not the closest. Microphone is closer, so mic is the pink, macro is the yellow. So the two biggest micro is competitor and customers, but competitors is pretty obvious who they are. Is the people that sell the same product are directly competing with you, or they're just substitutes to your product. The public are sort of a sort of customer who's not a customer, but someone that has some influence because they are in the area where they could be a lobby or something that would generate positive or negative impact on your business. Then you have the suppliers. Obviously, the suppliers sometimes are extremely important because they come up with innovation, and then you get the innovation, and you get the. For example, I work a lot in the beverage industry, and the glass maker is very important because they come up with new glasses, and the new glasses have a big impact because there's different designs and some are attractive designs. Oftentimes, people buy alcoholic beverages based on the design of the bottle. The bottle shape has a big incidence in people preference for different products, so that's important. But also the bottle design is important because there's a use of glass, and glass is expensive, and sometimes you have a bottle that looks very big, but the way the design is makes it look big, but you use less glass, so therefore the bottle, usually the price of a bottle is the number of bottles that they make and the amount of glass that they use. So a bottle that looks big, but I use less glass, it's great because it's cheaper and the customers think it's more. The bigger a bottle looks, usually the more the customer like it. So suppliers are very important. The suppliers also, it's their inventory and how much do they keep inventory for you, and just from storing and the time they take and the time it takes for them fabricate, the time that they give you, the importance and so forth. So having a good relationship with suppliers is very important. And then, it says the company as well, because you have the internal staff. So your employees is also part of your environment and they have a big impact. From this, then we look at the yellow part, which is the environment outside of your micro environment, which is called the macro environment. And so the most important one, I mean, it's difficult to say because the context may be changing, but usually the most important one will be the economic. Do people have money or they don't have money? So if there is a situation where people have less money because they don't have jobs and there's no poor employment and there's no savings and so forth, that has usually a big impact on how much do they consume. So I would say economical is very important. Um, Normally, the one that usually comes as second or first is cultural. So the cultural trends is huge, and we see that's directly connected between your customers and the cultural. There is your customers, then there's the culture, and all of this as an incident. But another one that is very important, and obviously we see it these days, I would say for the past year, has been tremendous, is the political environment. Political environment as a huge factor on doing business. For example, one of the business I'm very involved is the wine, champagne, and spirits made in Europe. Obviously, I don't know how much you follow the news, but in particular made in France, the relationship between the US customs and tariffs when it comes to importation of expensive luxuries and spirits from France, it's a big disaster, and it started pretty much the minute the new president was elected. And so since then, the consumption of cognac, we were talking about this, has decreased by about 70% in the United States in 1 year. So that as a political has to do with the regulation, it has to do with the different rules and so forth, custom tariffs, um, and the regulations of the various components that you could be using in your production. So that's a huge impact. Then another one that has an impact that it's very obvious, and that's why it's hard to say which one is important, is the technological advancement. Sometimes technology changes everything. So, like we're looking at technological changes in terms of the communication, in terms of AI influence over everything, the internet, digital media, and so forth. All of this has tremendously impacted every industry, including the music industry. I mean, from Napster to everything that's happened since then, you can see that the world of the music has tremendously changed because of technology. But then demographics, that's becoming um, obviously kind of strange because we live in societies where there's less and less kids. So, for example, next year, we're going to lose about 30% of students coming to CSUN, for example, because the students that are coming to CSUN next year are the ones that are born during the Depression of 2008. And there was a year and a half, 2 years where people just didn't have kids. They just stopped. They were frozen because of the economical situation, and then he went back again. So there's just 2 or 3 years where the university is going to have a massive drop of students just because of demographics. But with the demographic, obviously it's interesting to see where people live. Are they living more on the West Coast, in California, leaving California, coming in California, moving around? Are they more old people, more young people? Are they birth? When do people have kids and all this? And what's different age group in the generation and all that? So the demographic situation can become a threat, can become an opportunity. All of this has an impact. And just to finish with the last one, natural resources. This is the energy, and so it's very related to the economy because the economy is change is the economy is based on the energy. The more energy you have, the better economy, in the sense that economy is transform energy essentially. So the less energy you have, the less you can transform anything. The less you produce, the less you become a service-oriented organization and economy. And as you become a service organization economy, you don't have any industry, and as you have less and less industry, your business becomes more geared towards financial services. And financial services means there's more and more rich people and less middle and lower class people because the finance ends up generating more wealth at the very top of the society and less. So industrial growth is what grows a more balanced economy. Financial service economy is what grows more top people having power over the other one because they control um, the interest rate, they control so many different things, and therefore it makes it easier, harder for people to become entrepreneurs and take advantage of giving people and satisfying people because eventually people are just working less, making less, consuming less, and therefore making less, and it's a bad spiral and so forth. So you see this, for example, not so much, I mean, in America, you see it because a lot of the industry went overseas, but it's not as bad as Europe where almost all the industry went overseas and they're going through a serious crisis right now because there's almost no more industries or and so forth. Yes, Jonah.
Yeah, sorry, Professor. In the last couple minutes of class, I was hoping we could ask some quick rapid fire questions for some
Oh,
like
yes.
overall classical stuff. So
Yes.
first of all, the in the syllabus, the whole idea of like the summarizing after presentation, those are for the concept reviews, not for the presentation, the client case
Yeah,
presentations,
yes,
right?
exactly. So matters, nobody has to summarize anything. It's for the concept. So it's for next time. And that's why I have it at the beginning because I don't want people to be confused. So no, fully, I should have probably mentioned it, but nobody had to make any summary of your group presentation.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Wanted to clarify, but we will be doing it on the first group to present their concept review next week.
Next week, exactly. So I think it's Schopenhauer, Milgram. Then you will have to make it. And that's the easiest thing in this class. You just have to be awake, pretty
Yeah,
much, and just make a summary. So it's like, yeah, it's just to check if people are awake. If you're
for sure.
awake, it's 100%.
Great. Okay, awesome. Sounds great. Thank you, Professor. And then last little question. Next week we have due our rough draft of the final group presentation. I wanted just to ask maybe a clarifying question for everyone in class, just like how rough are we talking here? Do we just want like some general ideas for like,
Yeah, so I tell
that
you what
we
it
have,
is.
just
No,
general structure of the presentation?
just yeah, yeah. So the SWOT, just try the
Oh, just a
SWOT.
swap. Okay,
Yeah,
sweet.
if I see a SWOT, it's wonderful. If have I ever seen a complete and good SWOT? Never. So we need to start from the bottom, right?
Yeah.
And where is it really bad? The opportunity. What is bad about the opportunity? People will write IDs in the opportunity.
Right.
I can here I have it written 15 times on the screen, and that's the second time I present it. Next week I will have everyone write IDs in the opportunity, even though I said it's not. I'm just prepared, but I've said it, and people will still write IDs in the opportunity. So you don't say, "Oh, Playita should be posting more on social media." So it's not like this. It's like you could talk about the fact that social media are increasing sales according to Nielsen from 2026 report. That's not an ID. You're just saying social media works. But saying Playita should be using social media, that's an ID. So you can only say facts. Strengths and weaknesses is easy. What they're good, what they're bad. 99% of this, everyone gets that. Opportunities, everyone puts IDs when it should be facts.
Mm.
And threats, it's the same thing, just facts. Talk about their music gender going down, talk about something. People don't want to hear about political messages. I don't know. If I'm not saying that's what it is, but that's just a fact. If that was the real, just straight fact. How do we write it? Just bullet points, simple. Okay, so I'll send a little reminder. In fact, if you go in the files, just a second, let me show you this. Thank you for asking this question. If you go in the files, it says here's something you should use to all right. Just a second, I'm rushing. Share there. I have a thing called OIST inside files. So Canvas, files, and it says OIST, and it's sort of what you would want to follow
for the
for the
rough
draft.
draft.
Yeah,
Okay,
rough
Gotcha.
draft. Just written like this, straight to the point. Overall opportunity, it's this.
okay.
Not IDs, specific opportunities. Then you can write the IDs. I have a section just for the IDs. And then that's why I have a section for strategies and a section for tactics, because 99% of the people don't know the difference. One is big, one is small. And so they mix them. You know, what they should do in 3 months, in tomorrow, that's a tactic. Strategies is the big picture. And you have to think in terms of big picture. I haven't presented that in the class yet, but I think you may have heard those things about strategies with Professor de Gravel. Normally, that he had one
Yep.
class on this subject,
Yep. Mhm.
and but usually you have to start over and re-explain and so forth. And it's okay, but I just want to see you do the draft. The draft is not to tell you everything is wrong. The draft is to correct it, and then you don't get graded for it. So if it's not good, you don't want to be hurt. You get feedback. And that's why I say at the end, everyone does very well because I only grade after I grinded everybody. And then everybody's ready, and then they go, oh my God, I'm very happy it worked because you got it. So I don't grade when you're learning. I just want you to feel free to make mistakes. You learned from mistakes. That's great. It's
Okay,
positive.
absolutely. Yeah, appreciate it, Professor. So just basically, the SWOT analysis mirrored kind of a lot like our the structure of this presentation here.
Yes.
And then just as far as those bullet points and stuff, nothing like super in depth, but definitely some like big ideas that we'll probably be carrying into the final
Yes,
presentation.
you will be carrying it, and you will see sometimes you call them tactics and their strategies, and sometimes strategies and tactics. But usually people either abandon something or they keep something and they find. And again, you know, the idea is to find the opportunity, and on average, people find that by the 20th of February. So everybody search, 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 search until they go, oh, I found it. I found the opportunity which will carry this band. But you have to find several because obviously there's like a 3 4 years. So it's not one that will carry them for 4 years. It has to be,
Mhm.
you know, period. Sometimes and it's not one for 1 year, one for the second year. Sometimes it's one for 6 months, and then the next one is for 10 months, and the next one is for 16 months. You know, it's not mathematics. It's not 12, 12, 12, 12.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Thank
do
you,
definitely a
Jonah.
better idea of what to
Yes,
turn in
thank you.
next week. So
And I'll
thank
do
you.
an email before, like tomorrow, if not tonight, tomorrow. And that way I'll repeat this, and everyone just, it's bullet points. You don't have to write essays and all this, not necessary. Okay, thank you for your questions. Thank you for your presentation and participation. It's an awesome class. I'm enjoying myself with positive people. It's great. We'll do well.